Being a shareholder of Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, well, most of you guys know their products as Jeep or Dodge or Mopar or Chrysler in America. You got to be frustrated, like with their investments in EVs and now their massive pullback in EVs and plug-in hybrids. It's nothing but comical. So today we're going to focus on that. We're going to start off talking about how Ford, then now General Motors, and now Jeep are all pulling back on their EV investments. Well, because the government is no longer forcing them to make an absurd amount of EVs for a market that doesn't really want that many EVs. Anyways, we're going to break that down today, but we have other things to talk about. How Mazda keeps delaying their EVs, which is actually a good idea from them. The Japanese typically have a safer approach with EVs. They didn't get, I'd say typically Honda, yes. Anyways, but stay to the end because we're going to discuss what's happening at the Tokyo Auto Salon, from Nissan to Subaru. We got some STIs coming. Again, don't get your hopes up. This is Subaru. GR Yaris Morizo RR. Again, don't get your hopes up because we don't get the Yaris. But there's some other cool stuff as well that I want to talk about today in today's video. So make sure to stay to the end, guys. If you are excited to see the big three pull back on EVs, or if you just find it hilarious, hit the like button. You know, Ford took a $20 billion charge. They didn't have to build EVs to appease the government anymore. Okay, that was back in mid-December, so about a month ago. Now, what came out yesterday, GM is doing the same thing, not to the scale of Ford, but GM taking a $6 billion write-off, okay, or write-down or a charge, whatever you want to call it, due to pulling back on EV investments. Now, most of the write-down is tied to supplier payouts for canceled work. Yeah, those suppliers got to be real happy about this. Now, GM said this write-down is not going to affect its current U.S. lineup of a dozen EV models. I've reviewed a few of them. I just did the Blazer EV SS. I've done the Silverado EV fairly recently as well, and the Hummer EV. Anyways, the industry's broadest offering of battery-powered vehicles. You know, Toyota also claims something similar. They say, hey, we have the most electrified models, which it's mainly hybrids, right? But they say the most electrified models of any other manufacturer. But Toyota sells faster than any of its competition. They're not losing money on any of their electric vehicles. Well, maybe they're really low volume of BZs and Lexus RZs. They just have a really low volume of EVs compared to General Motors. Guarantee you they're not losing anywhere close to what Ford and General. I mean, Ford killed the Lightning, right? General Motors is still doubling down on the vehicles that they've already brought to market. We plan to continue to make these models available to customers, even if customers don't want them. And let me tell you, I've driven plenty of General Motors EVs, and other than like the Equinox EV that can be had for super duper cheap, like mid $20,000, you get huge discounts on those things. Other than that, it's hard for me to recommend any other General Motors EV. I do like the Silverado EV, but it is very, 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 very expensive and it is very niche. Okay, how many big truck buyers want an electric pickup truck? Ford found out the hard way. All right. And some of them, you know, a large portion of them are just going to go buy a Cybertruck and look silly. Sorry if I offended anyone. It looks silly in my point of view. I might look silly to you. That's okay. All right. I'm not trying to take shots. GM placed a big bet on EVs. Yes, they did. And I'm not going to even get into it anymore because this one I find even more interesting. Stellantis has been forced to make plug-in hybrids for a long time. Okay. And the irony to that, well, they can't be happier about this. And the reason is, okay, well, they've been forced to the ZEV or the CARB states. So like up in Massachusetts, New York, the whole West Coast, the only Jeeps you could buy were the plug-in hybrid ones. All right. You couldn't get a gas Model 1 unless maybe you bought across the state border or something, or put in a special order. You couldn't just roll up to a dealership and buy a V6 powered Jeep Wrangler, for example, or even maybe Grand Cherokee. Let's go back in time real quick. All right, let's go back to November 4th. Fiat Chrysler of America, which Stellantis, whatever, estimated 320,000 plug-in hybrid SUVs they recalled them for potential fire risk. All right, these things continue to spontaneously combust, and this affects 2020 to 2025 Wrangler and Grand Cherokee plug-in hybrids. Now, what's crazy is that these vehicles have already been recalled, many of them, for the exact same thing. So like they got fixed with a software update, maybe replaced a part or two, but it didn't fix the issue at all. They're still ticking time bombs potentially. All right. A company review, or there's been at least 19 fires. All right. You might be saying, Kirk, wow, my odds are pretty good. Out of 320,000 plug-in hybrids, only 19 have caught a fire. I don't know what to say. All right. If you want to ride out with your plug-in hybrid, go ahead. You know, the range is so laughable on these things. Here's the irony. I actually kind of enjoy driving the 4xe, whether it's a Grand Cherokee or the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. They're pretty nice. They're pretty nice to drive. They're more efficient than as long as you're driving an electric range, because once you run out of electric range, which doesn't take long, it's only about 20 miles. Or it's 20 miles on the Wrangler. It's a little bit better on the Grand Cherokee. But anyways, if you drive mostly with electric range, it's pretty decent, assuming your battery doesn't combust. All right. But, you know, it does provide good power, and it assists that 2-liter turbo quite nicely. But here's the other recall. I mean, just leave it to AI. They remind us about this 2-liter turbo recall. Okay. Over 112,000 of Grand Cherokees from 24 to 25. I mean, here's the thing. Contaminated with residual casting sand. And because of that, well, not only can they catch fire, they can explode on themselves. All right. So not looking good. It's a similar recall to what Toyota's having on their twin turbo V6, you know, so whether it's the engine that can catch fire and blow up, or the battery that can catch fire and blow up, these Wrangler 4xe have been an unfixable problem. Well, seemingly, or at least a problem that they didn't care to really fix, or they couldn't fix because of too many manufacturing defects and maybe engineering defects as well, that they have just thrown in the frickin' towel. They're like, okay, the government's no longer forcing us to meet these fuel economy standards. All right, so we don't need to build these plug-in hybrids anymore that have been costing us billions and billions of dollars, not only to incentivize, because no one's really buying them on a massive scale, but also to replace all those engines and all those battery packs, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Okay, the cost is I can't even imagine what the cost is for these 4xe to incentivize, but also to replace on hundreds of thousands of units. Now they're dead. However, Stellantis still has plug-in hybrids coming, but they're range extenders. So you remember the Ram Charger thing? Okay, that is going to continue to come out with a big battery and a V6 as the range extender generator. There are other models as well coming out, maybe some... Okay, we're back. I had to say goodbye. He was going to swim class. Where were we? Well, anyways, let's just wrap this up. No more 4xe, and that's okay. No one needs to be roasted inside of a 4xe. Now, Mazda, they keep delaying their EVs, which this is the irony. Okay, you have Ford, Chevy, Dodge, all being like, okay, we're going to make a ton of EVs. Well, part of the reason they had to make so many EVs is because they have so many gas guzzling cars. So in order to neutralize their massive engines, okay, and their V8s and whatever else they have, they've had to make a ton of EVs. And they really don't have high scale hybrid production to neutralize that either. So they're just like, okay, we're just going to go full in on EVs. All right. Because, well, a lot of them also have business in China. So they're like, well, China's going full EV, so we're just going to kind of use a lot of that R&D to flow over to America, because Americans are going to want EVs too. Well, it turns out not very many do. And those who do, great. It's great to have options. Mazda EVs are delayed until at least 2028. They said it was going to be on the scalable architecture starting in 2025, and then it was 26 and 27, 28. They can keep pushing it back. They are dependent on Changan Mazda, which is their joint venture over in China, so they don't need to have any in-house built EVs. In fact, in Europe, they're just sending the CX-6E and the Mazda 6E, okay, One's a sedan, one's a crossover. They're just sending the Chang'an Mazdas from China to Europe. Okay, everyone's doing it, right? In America, they don't need to have any EVs anymore. Okay, there is no longer, the government forcing that. Mazda still is going to have a hybrid in 2027 on the CX-5. They have a hybrid used from Toyota on the CX-50 currently. They have plug-in hybrids on their large platform, but even those, they're happy to reduce the volume of, because they don't really need them on the market anymore. They're no longer being penalized due to a fuel economy standard. So I just thought that was interesting. Let's go into the cool stuff, but not that exciting stuff. And why is it? Well, Tokyo Auto Salon is for Japan. Sometimes they reveal things for the global market, but it's few and far between. All right. So really, all these cars that we're talking about here are made with parts or special editions that is for the Japanese market. So I drove the Nissan Note Ara Nismo on Halloween, actually. I went to Yokohama and drove this vehicle down to the Daikoku rest area. Had lunch over there too. I was the only foreigner eating at the lunch stop. Anyways, it was fascinating. And yeah, the Note Ara, it was a fun car, handled really well. Well, guess what? They wide bodied it, and then they gave it a massive upgrade when it came to power. All right. Yes, it's wider, it's lower, okay, better downforce, all that stuff. But the powertrain I find interesting. So it weighs about 220 pounds more over the other Nismo Ara. Okay, the one that's in production. This one is using the X-Trails, which we know as the Rogue. The Rogue gets e-power in other markets. It will be coming here, but it's about 100 or 201 horsepower to the front wheels. Check this out. Okay, 150 kilowatts to the front wheels and 100 kilowatts to the rear wheels. Let's just say that's around 150 horsepower, something like that. So you have really impressive all-wheel drive system, and you have this 1.5 liter turbo 3-cylinder engine. But let's look at the pictures real quick. What do you guys think? It looks good from the front, I think. But we don't get this car. Even if Nissan decided to build it, it's never going to come to America. Man, it looks so clean. Looks really nice. And okay, so it's not a manual. Yes, it'd be better in manual, but here's the thing. What does Nissan really have in manual that would be interesting? Nothing, because they can't put the twin turbo V6 in here from the Nissan Z. Their VC turbo, I don't want it in here. This, potentially around, I don't know what peak horsepower. You can't just add the motor outputs because you're still limited by the small battery pack and how much power the engine can provide. All right, but it looks awesome. I'll see you guys in the comments. Maybe you disagree. That's fine. Let's go move on. Subaru has all these cool STIs. They just keep bastardizing STI. STI, they're like, okay, we put on some performance parts and some cool, lip spoilers and things like that. Maybe a little bit different seats, but they call it STI Sport on most of these models. And they use the STI badge, but there's no performance. There's no added engine performance or all-wheel drive performance, I guess you could say. All right, it's really just tacked on stuff and just slapping STI Sport to get people's interest. All right, so not excited for Subaru. GR Yaris Morizo RR, yes, this is cool as hell, but they're only making 100 of these for Japan and nowhere else. Okay, these things are going to be worth a ton of money, and only collectors, they're just going to sit on these. So I love it. I don't love that it's locked away exclusive for the Japanese market, but this is an auto salon. Okay, each one is individually signed from Akio Toyoda himself because he specifically, helped design this car. All right, so yeah, pretty badass. But is that it? Oh, this one I thought was interesting too. We have a Modelista body kit for the ES, and it makes it look pretty darn nice. All right, I'm not sold on the looks of the new ES, but this Stormtrooper white and black with the body kit, I think really complete the looks from the front, especially the side. Yes, we have this crazy line, but it feels like it's neutralized by this side skirt here, or complemented, not necessarily neutralized, but complemented. All right, and I like this continuation of the line that goes to the back. The rear looks really, really clean here. I think it looks pretty dope. I can't believe I said dope. No one says that anymore. Yeah, it looks good. I think that's the last thing I have. So I'll end it there. Thank you guys. EV market just continues to unravel here in the United States. And it probably will until cost continues to, until cost is on parity or below gas cars, which is possible. It's possible until infrastructure gets better or until we have a breakthrough, like solid state batteries. Look at the Donut Labs stuff. If Donut Labs isn't blowing hot air up our you-know-whats, we could be having a solid state battery realities very, very soon. But I don't want to get my hopes up until I see it mass produced at an affordable scale with real in-world specs, not inside of a $40,000 motorcycle or stuff like that. Until that happens, I'm not buying it. All right. But I got to shut it down. Let's start editing this video. I'll see you in the comments. Thank you for watching. Have a great day out there. Peace.